Marvel projects have introduced countless characters that feel like they've always existed. But here's the thing, none of them were created overnight. Every single design has a process behind it, a history that stretches back decades, and every look tells its own story. Today, we're diving deep into how these characters were born on the comic page, how their designs evolved through different eras, and exactly how those looks were translated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. These videos take serious effort to put together, so if you want more content like this and want to support the channel, subscribing and hitting that notification bell means everything. Now let's get into it.
Let's go! Let's go.
Spider-Man. When Steve Ditko and Stan Lee unveiled Spider-Man in Amazing Fantasy number 15 back in 1962, the design was unlike anything on the stands. Full face mask, no visible skin, giant white eyes, web pattern covering the entire costume. Other heroes showed their jaws or hair. Peter Parker hid everything, which made him mysterious and relatable at once. The red and blue color scheme popped off the page, and that basic template has barely changed in over 60 years. The most significant departure came during Secret Wars in the mid-80s when Peter picked up what he thought was a new costume. Sleek, black, with a white spider symbol. Looked incredible. Turned out to be an alien symbiote with a mind of its own. That living suit eventually bonded with Eddie Brock, becoming Venom, one of the most popular villains in Marvel history. But the classic red and blue always returned. Artists like Todd McFarlane pushed the eyes larger and the webbing more detailed, while modern artists keep refining without reinventing. When Marvel Studios brought Spidey into the MCU for Civil War, the visual development team balanced nostalgia with function. The suit uses practical fabric with raised webbing you can actually feel, plus expressive mechanical lenses that widen and narrow, giving Peter emotion without removing his mask. Later films added Stark Tech elements and the Iron Spider's nano armor, all built from concept art, on-set costume work, and careful VFX polish. Every thread connects back to Ditko's original genius. Loki. Jack Kirby designed Loki for Journey into Mystery in the early 1960s, and the look was pure theatrical villainy. Green and gold color palette, long curved horns sprouting from a golden helmet, a high collar and cape that screamed mischief. Kirby drew Asgardian gods like operatic figures, and Loki was the slipperiest of them all. Over the decades, artists adjusted the details. Sometimes the horns got sleeker, sometimes the outfit added more armor, but that core silhouette never really disappeared. The green stayed, the horns stayed, the smirk stayed. Modern comics have experimented with Loki's identity in fascinating ways, but visually, gold and green remain the signature. Translating this to the MCU meant making the costume feel regal without looking like a Halloween accessory. The costume department built practical leather and metal pieces, layered textures that catch the light, and crafted that iconic helmet as a real wearable prop. Tom Hiddleston's first appearance in Thor showed a slightly bulkier Asgardian armor, which slimmed down over subsequent films as Loki shifted between antagonist and anti-hero. The TVA arc in the Disney Plus series stripped him down further shirt, tie, jacket, proving the character works even without the god attire. But whenever the horns come back, audiences feel it. That helmet is decades of comic history, forged into one unmistakable shape, refined for screen through concept art, practical craftsmanship, and just enough digital cleanup. Iron Man. Tony Stark's original armor in Tales of Suspense from 1963 was a clunky gray machine that looked more like a diving suit than a superhero costume. It was bulky, no color variation, almost crude by today's standards. That gray look lasted only a handful of issues before the gold armor arrived, a smoother upgrade that read better on the page. But the definitive shift came when red was added to the gold, creating the hot rod color scheme now recognized worldwide. Over the following decades, artists iterated constantly. The Extremis armor introduced a sleeker biomechanical aesthetic, the bleeding edge pushed nanotechnology, and each design became more sophisticated. Modern Iron Man looks like a walking sports car, all sharp lines and glowing repulsors. When Marvel Studios launched the MCU with Iron Man in 2008, the visual development process built every armor piece as a practical prop first. The Mark I used real metal and mechanical rigging, establishing a believable origin. Later suits combined practical chest pieces, helmets, and arm gauntlets with extensive CG for flight sequences. By Infinity War, the nanotech suit was almost entirely digital, but earlier concept art and on-set references kept the design grounded. The genius here was evolution. Each film upgraded Tony's tech visually, mirroring his genius in-universe while respecting decades of comic heritage. The silhouette never lied. Red, gold, power. Wolverine. Logan's debut in Incredible Hulk number 181 from 1974 introduced a wild look. bright yellow spandex with blue accents, a mask with pointed ears, or were they whiskers? Even the creators weren't entirely sure at first. The design was loud, almost garish, designed to grab attention against Hulk's green mass. Once Wolverine joined the X-Men, his costume went through refinements. The brown and tan suit from the early 80s gave him a tougher, more feral vibe, often preferred by fans who wanted Logan to look like a predator rather than a performer. Later, the yellow returned, cementing it as the classic. Modern comics blend elements. Sometimes the mask stays on, sometimes Logan goes barefaced with just the mutton chops and claws doing the talking. Fox's X-Men films famously abandoned the yellow entirely, putting the team in black leather for a grounded aesthetic. Hugh Jackman's Logan looked great on screen, but comic fans spent 2 decades waiting for the proper suit. That wait ended with Deadpool and Wolverine in the MCU, where the visual development team finally delivered yellow spandex with texture and dimension. The suit was built practically with muscle padding and weathered fabric, then polished in post-production. The result felt lifted straight from the page without looking cartoonish, a balance fans had been craving since the early 2000s. Deadpool. Rob Liefeld created Deadpool for New Mutants number 98 in 1991, and the original design owed a lot to Spider-Man, intentionally so. Full mask, big eyes, red and black color scheme, even a similar build. Early Deadpool was more mercenary than comedian, but the visual language stayed consistent. As writers leaned into the fourth wall breaking humor, artists adapted. The eyes became more expressive, almost cartoonish, reflecting Wade's shifting emotions despite the mask. Scars under the suit were sometimes shown, sometimes implied, but the costume remained deceptively simple. Modern Deadpool looks nearly identical to the original, proof that Liefeld nailed something iconic on the first try. When Ryan Reynolds brought Wade Wilson to screen, the costume department treated the suit with extreme fidelity. The red leather was built practically, with pronounced black sections, tactical pouches, and holsters arranged just like the comics. Those white eyes? Practical lenses for close-ups, digitally enhanced for action scenes to convey emotion. The beauty of Deadpool's design is its simplicity, no elaborate armor, no nanotech, just a mercenary with weapons and wisecracks. Visual development focused on texture and fit, making sure the suit looked worn without losing its graphic punch. And because Deadpool constantly acknowledges his own fiction, the faithful costume becomes part of the joke. He knows exactly how he's supposed to look. Hulk. Hulk was originally gray, not green. When Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introduced him in 1962, the first issue showed a gray-skinned monster. But inconsistent printing made the gray look different on every page, sometimes dark, sometimes washed out, so they switched to green by issue 2. That bright green popped consistently and became the Hulk's signature. Over the decades, artists have played with musculature and facial expressions, swinging between mindless brute and tortured giant depending on the story. The Grey Hulk even returned as Joe Fixit, a Las Vegas enforcer persona with more intelligence than rage. Modern comics often give Hulk a body, like a walking mountain range, exaggerated anatomy that communicates unstoppable power. In the MCU, Hulk has always been digital. Early films used motion capture loosely, but Mark Ruffalo's tenure brought performance capture directly into the creature. Ruffalo wears the sensor suit, performs the scenes, and VFX artists translate those expressions onto a 9-foot green frame. The visual evolution from Avengers through Endgame shows increasing subtlety. Smart Hulk combines Banner's intellect with the creature's physique, requiring seamless digital work to blend actor and monster. Visual development artists spent months refining how that transformation would look, building a Hulk that honors decades of comic art while remaining believably human underneath. Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff first appeared in X-Men number 4 back in 1964, and her costume reflected the era's approach to female heroes, revealing impractical and entirely pink at first. The iconic headpiece was there from the start, that dramatic pointed crown framing her face. Over time, the color shifted to red, and the outfit evolved through countless redesigns. Some artists covered her more fully, others leaned into flowing capes and mystical accessories. The headpiece remained the constant visual anchor, even when everything else changed. Modern Scarlet Witch designs embrace her chaos magic identity, dark reds, layered textures, and that unmistakable crown. In the MCU, Wanda's visual journey mirrored the comics carefully. Age of Ultron introduced her in street clothes and a red jacket, grounding her as a human before a superhero. Civil War and later films slowly added more deliberate costume elements, but Marvel held back the headpiece until WandaVision. When that crown finally appeared, crafted practically with metal and enhanced digitally, it landed as an earned moment. The costume department built layers of red leather and corsetry, giving Elizabeth Olsen something physically present to wear on set. VFX then amplified her powers with swirling red energy, tying visual effects directly to costume color. The result feels like like decades of comic evolution condensed into a few remarkable years of screen time. Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff debuted in Tales of Suspense in 1964, and she looked nothing like the Widow fans know today. Her first costume was a blue cape and mask more theatrical spy than covert operative. The black catsuit came later, evolving through the 70s as artists refined her into a sleek, lethal presence. Artists have modified the necklines, added gauntlets, and played with tactical accessories, but the core silhouette stays the same. Modern Black Widow is efficient and deadly form-fitting suit, utility belt, wrist gauntlets with her signature stingers. The MCU translation focused on tactical realism. Scarlett Johansson's first appearance in Iron Man 2 showed a catsuit-inspired design with zippers, seams, and believable texture. Costume designers used stretch fabric with integrated padding and practical gauntlets that worked on camera. No capes, no impractical elements, every piece served a function. Over subsequent films, the design evolved subtly. Different hairstyles, varied mission gear, and slight color shifts kept the look fresh. The standalone Black Widow movie leaned into armored tactical vests and white suit variants for cold environments, all built practically with minor digital cleanup. Widow's visual development proved that sometimes the simplest comic designs translate most effectively, no reinvention needed, just smart material choices. Captain America. Joe Simon and Jack Kirby created Captain America in 1941, and the design was immediately iconic. Red, white, and blue. A star on the chest, wings on the mask, a shield originally shaped like a badge before it became the circular vibranium disc. The costume screamed patriotism at a time when America needed propaganda heroes, and Steve Rogers became the symbol. Over the decades, the suit stayed remarkably consistent. Artists darkened shades, added scales, experimented with different helmet shapes, and occasionally changed the entire identity during storylines like Nomad or The Captain. But the core always returned. The star, the stripes, the shield. Modern comic Cap looks like a tactical soldier wrapped in a flag, practical but symbolic. The MCU's approach leaned into that practicality hard. The first Avenger introduced a USO performance suit as an intentional joke before revealing the field uniform, which used leather, straps, and practical armor. Later films adjusted the design based on Steve's allegiances, brighter for Avengers, darker for Winter Soldier's stealth missions, worn and torn for Endgame's final battle. Costume designers built each suit with real materials, ensuring the shield straps and harness worked for stunts. VFX enhanced damage and movement, but rarely created the suit digitally. Chris Evans wore that costume, felt its weight, and that physicality showed on screen through every single punch. Thor. Jack Kirby introduced Thor in Journey into Mystery in 1962, and the design borrowed from Norse mythology filtered through superhero aesthetics. The winged helmet, flowing red cape, blue tunic, and bare arms gave him a godly appearance without medieval armor. He looked powerful but accessible. Over the decades, artists added chest plates, changed the helmet's shape, and occasionally went full Viking armor, but the core elements endured: Mjolnir, the cape, and that golden mane. Modern Thor often appears in more elaborate Asgardian battle gear, though some artists strip him down to basics. The winged helmet remains iconic even when it disappears for stretches. When Marvel Studios cast Chris Hemsworth, the first Thor film gave him the full Asgardian treatment, a practical costume with metallic discs, layered leather, and a cape that flowed on set. The helmet appeared briefly, establishing the comic connection, then largely retired because helmets limit actor performance. Over time, Thor's look shifted dramatically. Ragnarok stripped away the cape and long hair for a gladiator arena aesthetic, while Infinity War and Love and Thunder reintroduced mythic elements. Visual development artists designed each armor variation digitally before craftsmen built practical pieces. VFX enhanced lightning effects and Stormbreaker's arrival, but the core costume work remained physical. Thor's evolution reflects storytelling needs from Shakespearean prince to cosmic warrior. Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom first appeared in Fantastic Four number 5 in 1962, and Jack Kirby designed a villain for the ages. Iron mask covering a scarred face, green hooded cloak, medieval armor beneath. Doom looked like a dark knight from a nightmare, and that fusion of science and sorcery defined his visual identity from day one. Remarkably, few major changes have occurred since. Artists have sharpened the mask's angles, added technological details to the armor, and varied the green shades, but Doom's silhouette remains consistent across 6 decades. That speaks to the original design's strength. It communicated everything about the character instantly. Modern comics emphasize the contrast between royal elegance and cold metal, often rendering the mask with almost frightening detail. Doom's cloak still drapes dramatically, his armor still hums with power, and his face still hides behind that expressionless iron facade. The MCU has teased Doom for years. Visual development for a character this iconic carries serious weight. Every rivet matters. Expect practical armor builds with layered textures, a mask that conveys menace through stillness, and VFX reserved for Doom's energy blasts and tech displays. The design needs no reinvention. It just needs proper execution, respecting what Kirby created while making the metal feel cold enough to touch. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, and for more videos, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Tell me in the comments which characters you want to see in part 2. See you in the next one.